Grace to you and peace from God above us, God beside us, and God within us. Welcome to this gathering. The family wants this to be a celebration, and it should be, for we're gathered to remember a remarkable woman who has touched all of our lives, and through us has touched the world remarkably. But we also grieve her loss, and what we have felt in losing Liz and what she has brought into our lives. So today there's a mixture of gratitude and grief. The two go hand in hand. So we'll focus on both. There'll be some songs that we'll sing together, some of them dear to Liz, some of them dear to the family. There's some poetry, for she loved poetry. There's some choral music through video. There's some family members and friends speaking about her life, and then I'll give all of you a chance. Well, not all of you, that would take us all day. But a handful of you, I'll walk around and see if there's a short memory or phrase that you'd like to speak in memory of Liz. So this is the way we'll proceed today, and then afterwards, of course, we'll have a grand party outside and remember her together. So we begin with the words that we have placed at the beginning of your program. Oh, and incidentally, I wanted to say, as you turn a couple of the pages, you'll see that brief story of her life and that photograph of her. And isn't that just classic? The smile and the twinkle in the eye that, in my experience, was always there. I would imagine as her children, it wasn't always there, but for the rest of us, it was. So let us use these words to gather our hearts and minds and souls together. In her baptism, Elizabeth Bradford was embraced by grace. She is now radiant with the light of Christ. We gather to celebrate the gifts God gave us through her life. We gather to give thanks to the Creator and Healer of all things and all time. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn. we join our voices together, O God, to sing our praise, to express our gratitude. Our hearts and minds soar over the wonders of this earth, the gifts of nature, and the way you sustain us by all of it. As we gather this day, strengthen us with gratitude to grieve and to celebrate the life you've given us and the love we share. Amen. You may be seated. Our readings this afternoon are two. First from the New Testament, the letter of 1 John, and then the second, the prayer of St. Francis. Beloved, let us love one another, because love is from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love. Beloved, since God loved us so much, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God lives in us, and God's love is perfected in us. And from St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. Well, the world's in trouble. You feel it? And then on top of that, we have this kind of grief. It seems to me as if there are wide swaths of humanity that are losing their humanity. The inhumanity of human beings to others, at least in my lifetime, has never seen anything greater. Cruelty, callousness, hatred, hubris, all these affect us and inflict us and divide us. Religion, when it is at its worst, does the same. And there's plenty of history of that. But when it's at its best, everywhere, religion invites humanity to be better. It teaches us how to find our humanity again. The text we read from 1 John is an illustration of this. Everyone who loves knows God. Everyone. The New Testament has been used to divide people from one another, but here is the high watermark of the Bible. Everyone who loves knows God. For God is love. The nature toward which religion points is the very nature of the divine being, the very nature of reality, the very nature of the universe. What is it? Love. That's not just romantic love. Love is that which holds us all together. It's what brings us together today. Love has shaped us. Love has inspired us. Love has helped us. Love has healed us. Liz's life points to love. The readings that the family has chosen, the songs they have chosen, all celebrate love and, we'll hear later, the joy of living. We taste joy when we love and are loved. And so today, no matter what is happening out in the rest of the world, let us take some instruction from the legacy of Elizabeth Bradford and what she has done in our lives to shape our lives. It hasn't always been perfect, I'm sure. She's a human being like the rest of us. But at the core of her being was this passion to love and to be loved. And the four of you, the family, are witnesses to all this. You carry that legacy forward. All of us as friends who connect with you in various ways, we carry that legacy forward. So in these difficult days, let's leave this place with a deeper commitment to love. For love is what will heal our world and our lives. And may it be said of us, when this time comes for each of us, and it will, that those who gather celebrate the depth of our love, our ability, our willingness, our commitment to risk everything for love. Now, Liz loved poetry, so I'll do one more. I've done it before in the congregation, so I'm risking doing it again. But, good poems like good scriptures deserve being heard again. This is Maya Angelou. And let it shape your understanding, and may it invite you to do the one thing that really matters in life: to love. There's so many reasons not to, but none of them good enough. So here's her poem. We, unaccustomed to courage, exiles from delight, live coiled in shells of loneliness, until love leaves its high holy temple and comes into our sight to liberate us into life. Love arrives, and in its train come ecstasies, old memories of pleasure, ancient histories of pain. Yet if we are bold, love strikes away the chains of fear from our souls. We are weaned of our timidity in the flush of love's light. We dare be brave, and suddenly we see that love will cost us all we are and will ever be. But love alone will set us free. Let us hold some stillness for just a few moments and see what settles into our souls.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fasts. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change, a life from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and
Well, Liz certainly helped do that, didn't she? Lead us to the well, help in this great turning, and now it is time for us to testify to the wonders of her life. And so a handful of folks, first Dan will come up, and then Donna, and then Phil, to share some stories, help us remember, laugh, cry a little, who knows what will come. And then I'll circle around with you all to see if some of you have some memories to share. So first, Dan, please come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm sure you can all hear me. Excellent. I am Dan Engelke. I am the oldest of Elizabeth's two younger brothers. I'm so pleased that you used the photograph of Elizabeth in your flyer this morning, your memorial service program. That to me is an iconic image of my sister. That great smile she had, kind of an upturned face, and those deep-set, squinty eyes looking out at me. She reminds me a lot, actually, of our father that way. Nonetheless, to be certain that the three of us were really fortunate to be born into a wonderful, supporting, loving family. I'm 4 years older than Elizabeth. 4 years younger than Elizabeth. I feel like I'm 40 years old. I'm 4 years younger, and my brother is 5 years younger than me. My brother Robert is sitting right back here. And nonetheless, that made 9 years between Liz and Rob, and of course 4 years between myself and my sister. So with that age spread, like many families, we all had to find our own and meet our own activities and interests and age group friends. As you might gather, coming up through the grades, our sister set an extremely high bar. She was really smart, and all her friends were like her. They were really nice and really smart. I'm not quite sure I'd use the same terms to describe either all of my friends or my brother's friends. Fortunately, during the summers, we were able to get together as a family, really close. And we did camping across the country, traveled to both coasts. But a great deal of our time was spent in this wonderful place that many of us here know today, Door County, Wisconsin. That is the peninsula, for those of you who don't know, that sticks out into Lake Michigan, makes Green Bay out of Lake Michigan. Well, I've got two stories from there. One is from me when I was young. I would be, I think, 5, and she would be 9. And our mother sent us out to pick wild strawberries for the evening meal, dessert. If we could pick enough, she would make strawberry shortcake. Do you have any idea how many wild strawberries it takes to make a small pail? But nonetheless, as you might suspect, Elizabeth set forth and just focused right on it and picked away. Me, not so much, perhaps. But at the end of the afternoon, time to go home, and I had in my little bucket a little layer like this, and Elizabeth had a pail full. So I was mumbling on the way back to the cottage, and Liz took my bucket and poured half of hers in there. And she would do that for us. She looked out for Rob and I, supported us, was there for us. One of Rob's indelible memories happened in the same location, the Jackson Cabins, just south of Jacksonport there in Door County. And he was perhaps 5 and she would be 14. And he was invited by her to come out and to discover an Indian path. And this is a path that she had prepared earlier in the morning, And of course, Rob, stumbling upon it, found it, and he was told to pursue the path. So following the sticks and stones that laid down, he followed that deeper into the woods, and there in an opening was a small tree that had been laden with candy. And that entire Indian path candy tree scenario has been a part of his family tradition. He's done that for his children and for his grandchildren. Of course, the decades that followed as adults with growing families, and even though we were half a continent apart from one another, only made us stronger with our own stories and our own small lies about reality. And we share those today, all of us here today, and we've had the last 48 hours we've been doing that. Probably do some more later. So, I may have known her longer than anyone else. Perhaps not better, but longer. But the words that come to me to describe her now are pretty much had I been asked to do this as a child. I've heard of many of them already today. But I would include certainly thoughtful, generous, perceptive, forgiving, supportive, loving, and kind. And of these words, supportive, loving, and kind seem to be essential to me in describing the essence of her life. Supportive, loving, and kind. Simple words to say, a little more difficult to build a life around. Yet this is how I choose to remember my sister, Elizabeth Ann Engelke, Bradford. Thank you.
I have my little Kleenex here. Well, good afternoon. I'm Donna Waterman, and I'm honored to be here with you in this capacity. When I was asked to speak to Elizabeth's life and ministry at Davis Community Church, the following scripture passage, Matthew 11:28-29, came to mind. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Elizabeth Bradford was gentle and humble in heart, and kind, competent, confident, intelligent, faith-filled. As I thought about what I would say today, I talked with a former DCC staff person who said, "Don't forget her twinkle." She indeed had a twinkle in her eye and almost always had a smile on her face. My consultant went on to describe enjoying the times when Elizabeth would come into the church office intent on a mission for one thing or another. And there was always a grace about her, God's grace. She also referred me to the gorgeous quilt Elizabeth created that hangs in the fireside room hallway over here, and suggested the quilt could be a metaphor for the many pieces of Elizabeth's life at home, in the community, and at DCC. A beautiful testament. And I think about the wonderful obituary description of her life that you have here. Elizabeth became a mentor to me here at DCC, during my young motherhood years. We met when my husband Doug and I were young newlyweds. We were youth group leaders, and Doug had begun conducting the high school, college-age mission work weeks. Elizabeth already had 4 children and was very supportive of our attempts at youth ministry. Elizabeth reached out to me unobtrusively, drew alongside me in her quiet, lovely way. By that time, I was a young woman with 2 small children, close in age, who was unsure of herself on the one hand and strong-willed and opinionated on the other. I have said that Elizabeth was a mentor to me, and she was, yet we seemed to be on an equal footing. She treated me with respect and kind regard. We had many a philosophical discussion and exchange of ideas, and she seemed to value what I had to say. For me, that reflects a gentle and humble heart. She encouraged me to join her and a group of DCC women in attending the Presbyterian Women Triennium, which was held every 3 years in Purdue, Indiana, on the university campus there. It was an amazing experience with many highlights, but the one I will mention here is getting to sit with Elizabeth on the plane, going and coming, enjoying our deep discussions. And I remember that I went with her to her brother's house while we were there. Did one of you live in Purdue at the time? Elizabeth and I worked on projects together. I have memories of us at my dining room table. I don't remember whether it was Presbyterian women or Sunday school or what. She loved children, and she co-taught preschool. I thought it was at Lutheran Church of the Incarnation here in Davis. I mention this because one of those times in my house, she watched me interact with my preschooler and suggested a more gracious way to set limits. And it is to her credit, in my young motherhood, I could welcome her critique and learn from it. I have fond memories of her presence in Bible studies with one or the other of our pastors, Joy Dorff or Norm Pott, and her openness and new ways of approaching her faith. She sang in the chancel choir for years. And I used to sit in the pew during worship and focus on her face when she sang. She glowed, literally, and it was as if she was praying to and for us. We know choir is not to be performer, but worship leader. Elizabeth personified that for me. She was ordained an elder, officially a spiritual leader of the church, but for me, of course, she was already a spiritual leader with no need of the formality. Session was particularly lucky to have her wisdom and intelligence. At one point, Joy Dorff, our wonderful associate pastor here, was to leave on sabbatical, which meant several months without her. Norm Pott, wonderful pastor, preacher, social justice advocate, was not a detail man. I remember hearing from a staff member at the time that no one realized how much Joy did to keep the church office running smoothly until they were faced with her leaving. Someone had to fill the breach. Elizabeth Bradford was asked, and she stepped up. I know without a doubt that her gracious presence was a balm to all who came into the office and to the staff. She once said to me about her role as wife and mother, "Someone has to keep the home fires burning." I believe she literally kept the home fires burning at the church office while Joy was gone. Later, she told me that her husband, Eric, after all this deep immersion in church life, in the life of the church, asked her if she wanted to go to seminary. When she said no, he responded with, "Phew." I concur. We needed her expertise for keeping the home fires burning here at DCC. Elizabeth sustained tremendous grief in the losses, one after the other, of her son-in-law, Don Amon, Margaret's first husband, and then her own husband, Eric. She held Margaret in her arms at Don's memorial service, strong, steady, feeling her daughter's pain. Included in the worship bulletin for Eric's memorial service was a poem Elizabeth had written about Eric's spirituality and how it enriched her own. A beautiful reflection of their relationship and marriage. She and Margaret gifted me with the privilege of conducting the graveside service for Don and Eric together, and they were interred at the same time. Elizabeth was a pillar of the church, gentle and humble in heart, quietly going about contributing her many talents and skills, pretty much behind the scenes. The kind of church pillar who could be taken for granted simply because she didn't need or want fanfare. Many of you here today, no doubt, know many more details about Elizabeth's numerous roles here at DCC than I do. Even so, I am grateful and honored to have been given this opportunity to speak about Elizabeth's presence in my life and in the life of this church. Thank you.
Well, I'm Phil Gervais, and I have the pleasure of marrying the youngest, Ellen, of the Bradford clan. And siblings asked me to read reflections about her to you. Now, also being youngest, I struggled with, do I go eldest to youngest? Youngest to eldest? But then what about the middle kids? So in true youngest fashion, I mixed them up. So here we go. Margaret's reflections. In the last few weeks of Mom's life, one of her longtime caregivers stopped by to say hello. A vivacious and loud as ever Juanita worked her charm to get a big smile out of Mom. When she left, I said, "Mom, she's a cheery sort." Even though Mom had difficulty finding words and speaking at that point, she quickly replied, "I was too." I was glad to hear Mom thought about herself as cheery, because that's how I remember her too. Cheery, thoughtful, welcoming, most of all loving. Of course, there are many other adjectives I could use: intelligent, devoted, active, fun, creative, curious, and more. But her love is foremost in my mind and heart. My mom created a home for us that was always open and welcoming, full of beauty, good food, hugs, smiles, and enough love to go around. When I was young, she welcomed my friends. As a young adult, she helped me through some life transitions. Later, she welcomed my husband-to-be, Don, and their children, and our children, and their friends, with an open arms and open heart. Mom was my rock, when Don died. Dad was too, but when he died a few months later, it was my mom who kept on loving us as we supported each other. When the time came, she welcomed Brian and his family into the fold, rejoicing with us as we expanded that circle of love. Mom was not a hovering parent, yet she was almost always available to give support, share sage advice, or impart insightful wisdom as appropriate, often with just some very carefully worded chosen words. As an example, when I was pregnant with each of my children, she said, "Be prepared to fall in love again." As anyone who has ever loved deeply knows, the flip side of love can be deep grief. I'm glad my mom loved us, and so many others, and was easy to love in return. While I grieve her absence, I'm grateful for all the ways she showed us there is always more room for love. Anne's reflections. Sorry, Anne, you didn't get top billing. Reading all the many cards and emails in response to the news of Mom's passing, I was reminded of the quote attributed to Maya Angelou. At the end of the day, people don't always remember what you say or even what you do, but they always remember how you make them feel. Thank you for remembering with us, Elizabeth, our mother's warm welcome to visitors, friends, family to Davis, to our home, church, and always to her children, grandchildren, husband, when they came home from school, work, or traveling. She showed her love through her beautiful smile, and in the many ways she planned and prepared several meals, not only for parties and holiday celebrations, but 3 times a day for her family. Elizabeth truly loved everyone and did what she could to make them happy. Of course, there were things that Mom didn't like to do, and she let you know, not through complaining. Elizabeth just grit her teeth and did it, such as killing a mouse in the house, driving a car in bad weather, or wearing a mask, getting nasal swabs and vaccines during this COVID pandemic. She got through these things and focused on what did matter. And for her, it was mostly people. And her creative side, which showed itself in her cooking, her writing, drawing. Yes, she could draw people. And later in life, the beautiful patchwork quilts she made for many of us. As Maya Angelou and others have intimated, while the most important thing is remembering how she made you feel, we do have so many tangible ways and written memoirs to remember what Elizabeth said and did while growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, traveling in Scotland and other places, and how she felt after Eric died. We treasure these memories of love and thoughtfulness woven into our lives. Ellen's reflections. In reflecting on my mother's life, I think often of how she loved us. She taught us that love was always present and not always perfect. Her love taught me both the importance of being independent and dependent. My earliest memories are of being loved and in turn being distraught when my mother would leave because she was everything to me. As I learned that love didn't go away when someone wasn't there, I could go out into the world and learn and explore and always know that love would be there when I returned. Then I entered that stage when I didn't need a parent's love, or at least I didn't think I did. I needed to be my own person, independent, fierce, sometimes wild. That's when I met her, by the way. Sorry, was that out loud? Okay. Of course, looking back, I know that my mother's love is what gave me those wings. When I became a mother, the bond of love with my mother became even stronger. I understood the love that she had for me in a new and profound way, and knew she loved my children too. Though her role and love as mother never wavered, we entered a new phase, enjoying each other's company more as peers, supporting each other, sharing equally in the love relationship. At some point, the balance shifted. Though I know my mom's love was constant, now it was my turn to show my love for her by taking care of her. In the last few years of her life, In her motherly, loving way, she would sometimes say to me, I didn't need to visit as often, or what a burden it must be to take care of her, to which I always replied, I love you, and I want to care for you the way you always cared for me. My mother's greatest gift was this love, and I'm grateful that she shared it with so many of us. Ken's reflection. Mom was a strong woman. She had a constant yet gentle strength that was seen in all facets of her life. As one expects from an Engelke, she was physically strong, yet gentle. Even in her last months, when she could hardly express herself, Mom would break into a big smile when I told this story to one of her new caregivers. I was a young boy, helping Mom make cookies at home. Usually I was interested more in the product than the process. But on this particular day, I was feeling pretty confident. Mom was whipping up a cookie dough in her big mixing bowl, the one with a handle, right? And I thought it looked pretty easy. Well, I don't remember what I said, but she said, you want to try? Here, go for it. In retrospect, I see a wry smile. Young Ken took the bowl with one hand and the big wooden spoon in the other, and it would not move. I tried. I really did. It was stuck. Mom was patient, and when I'd had enough, she gently took the bowl back in her left hand and the spoon back in her right. Woof, woof, woof. I was awestruck. I don't know that if I ever entertained the thought of physically challenging my mom, but if I did, that ended that day. I respected her strength, all the more because I knew she never used it against us, only for us. Mom had emotional strength too, along with tenderness and vulnerability we all knew. It's not easy being an eldest child, big sister to two hooligans. That's his words, not mine. Wife of a strong, ambitious, and gentle man, mother of 4, leader in the church and community. Yet before all that, in herself and in her own pursuits, she had a tenacity, resolve, and tenderness matched by few. It was on display in all of these different roles. She did it all well while displaying a constant and quiet strength others could count on at all times. In case you haven't noticed, it's not all leaders are like that. My sisters have touched on some of the strong-held beliefs and values which she asserted, when needed, firmly, but gently. My mom was extremely bright and could think clearly and thoroughly about any matter that mattered, all the way to the end. She could and did strongly contend for causes and people she believed in. Throughout life, she would teach a child, send a note, lead a meeting, sing a song, sign a quilt, or write a poem with the strength of expression she used for good, the gentle guide, education, and enrich us kids and many others. She didn't assert her views in a shrill or strident or obnoxious way, but rather in a gentle, clear, and articulate manner that was so Elizabeth. And that was comforting, both when you agreed with her and when you didn't. You knew exactly where she stood and knew she loved you regardless. When she was faced with a pernicious disease that attacked her nervous system, making her physical strength increasingly inaccessible, Mom didn't just lie down and take it. She marshaled all her strength she possessed, working hard at aqua aerobics, physical therapy, tandem biking, speech therapy, reading, writing, adaptive technology, and more, to stay as active as she could in mind, body, and spirit, giving and receiving love in the same vibrant and strong way she always did. Thanks, Mom. Well, and last from me, Elizabeth, I just want to say thank you for welcoming all into your home, no matter what country they came from. Period. For always having just enough for all to eat at your table with little leftovers. Now, that's truly an art form. Teaching others English as a second language. Instilling empathy and love for all in your children. But most of all, for introducing me to rhubarb pie. It has been an honor and a pleasure to call you Mom for 30 plus years.
Well, that was some remarkable storytelling. Dan and Donna and Phil, on behalf of the four of you, that was really beautiful. Thank you. And we'd like to fill it in a little bit. Now, not a lot, not everybody can share today, but a handful of you. With a phrase or a short memory, some way you'd like to lift up some special part of Liz's life and what it meant to you. So, how can we remember her through your eyes?
I just can affirm Elizabeth's incredible strength, even when she was struggling at the end. I rode the tandem bicycle with her and rode it to almost my own cardiac arrest, and then she would say, "Oh, I think we need to do 5 more minutes." And when we did exercise classes together, we were involved at some point in doing something that was a bit like arm wrestling, and she crushed me. It was unbelievable and very embarrassing.
Thank you, Peg.
I don't really want to stand with my back to people, so I'm going to move over here. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Diane Whitaker, and I grew up in the house next door to the Bradfords on Sequoia Place, where over the years, many wonderful memories were created on that cul-de-sac. I think actually the two families were the first 2 houses on the street that were built and occupied. There was Mr. and Mrs. Bradford, Anne and Ken, my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, myself, Diane, and my sister Pam. And at a very early point, we started celebrating Christmas dinner together. And we would alternate back and forth between the houses. Over the years, both families added 2 additional children. So we were now up to 12 people at these annual Christmas dinners. And this is a tradition that continued up until the time that Mrs. Bradford had to leave her home on Sequoia Place. The other memory I wanted to share was how Anne, my sister Pam, and myself were the best of friends growing up on the street. And we played together all the time, especially on weekends and summer break. And one of my fondest memories is of playing in the Bradfords' garage before they remodeled their house. And I was just mesmerized because they had 2 wooden garage doors that were on rollers, where everyone else on the street had the overhead garage doors. So that was one of our favorite places to, as they say today, hang out, although we called it playing, looking at back issues of magazines and whatnot. And we also spent some time in the Bradford dining room, and I'm pretty sure it was under Mrs. Bradford's guidance, where we would draw floor plans. And we also took old shoe boxes and made like little rooms, dioramas with furniture and carpet and whatnot. And in thinking about my relationship with Mrs. Bradford over the years, once I had heard that she had passed, it suddenly dawned on me, back in the late 50s, she was planting the seed in my mind that led me on my career path to become a licensed California architect. And I want to thank Elizabeth Engelke Bradford for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Katie Kingston, and Elizabeth Bradford was the first person here at this church when we were brand new, which is only 10 years ago, to invite me to join one of the PEO Bible studies, which has been very important to me. I couldn't join hers, but became a member of another one.
My name is Karen Walton, although some of you might know me better as Karen Banks. I met Liz when Ann and I were enrolled at Wednesday Church School at this church. And I spent many hours at their house, messing around, learning to cook things, learning to sew things, just playing, invited over for dinners, sleepovers, and I always felt like it was a second home. That's how she made me feel. I had several of my mother's friends that made me feel that way, but she was one of them.
Hi, my name is Nikki McCallum, and I know Liz through her daughter Ellen. She and I have been friends since, 1989, long time. And I moved to this country from Wales by myself, and Phil and Ellen's families are so beautiful and so welcoming. And when I had my own children and they were very young, I was at an Easter event with Ellen's family, and I remember saying to her mom, we were preparing something, I can't remember what we were preparing, but I said, I wish, I was saying it's so beautiful that you're all here together, surrounded by family, and I really wish that for my children. And she took my face in her hands, and she looked at me with that twinkle in her eyes, and she says, but you are.
Thank you. Are there a couple more?
Hi, I'm Susan Wilcox, and Elizabeth supported me through the years of raising two little hooligans in this church. And she always had my back, and she always said, don't worry, they'll get over it, especially the year that my son took one of the pastor kids down to a hardware to buy a church mouse to deliver back to the sanctuary because they felt that the church needed a mouse. And so they were informed the church already had a mouse, and I was called. But anyhow, I always felt that if I could be like Elizabeth, I would be like Christ. And she was just such a caring, loving, supportive person that made all the difference in the world.
Thank you, Susan. Is that why we still have church cats, by the way? Because mice have babies. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Les. One of the words that I haven't heard used for Elizabeth is encouraging. And I just wanted to relay that at one point in my life, I was quiet. I don't think that still holds true. But I remember Elizabeth, after a class where I had spoken up, saying, oh, you're coming along.
That's encouragement. Is there one more?
I wish to thank Elizabeth for welcoming me and for the gift of her daughter after we were both widowed, and for the books that she recommended. I could always count on a good book if she recommended it. I'm Brian Plude.
Thank you, Brian. I saw one hand here.
My name is Rosemary Chabanaglas, and I remember Elizabeth fondly because we were very competitive over the bridge table together. And we learned bridge together, and we enjoyed playing bridge together. And she and Eric and I would go up to their place in Gualala and have a wonderful weekend of playing bridge and sharing wonderful food. She was the best cook ever.
Now, I can imagine her being a fierce opponent, but with a smile, right? So we have so many memories, each one of us, and we want to cherish them and hold them now as we watch this video of her life, and you'll see her as a little girl and all the family memories and memories maybe with some of you. So let's enjoy this and allow it to fill this space. Oh, goodness. How'd that make you feel, all of those of you who've lived most of those memories? Ellen, thank you for putting that together. Emma, for interpreting that so beautifully. And I heard murmurs. People say, oh, that's so-and-so, or that's such and such a place. And there were at least 2 pies, 1 birthday pie. Was it rhubarb? We don't know. Well, you know what's been moving through you. You've felt it. It's the force and power of love, which has been mentioned so many times already today. This prayer is a poem called Prayer by Liz's mother. So Liz evidently loved this one, and we've put it in, and it's the prayer now. So let it gather all of this together. And I hope that when you leave on your way to the reception, which will be out these doors and down the corridor, that you'll stop and look at the great quilt. It's massive. I've never seen a quilt that large. And just take a moment and reverence the hands that made it. Here's the prayer. Lord, let me live wisely, open to knowledge, yet judging its value. Let me live kindly, open to feelings, knowing compassion. Let me keep faith, open to truths of both heart and mind. Let me know love, taking my share, but not seeking to bind. Please rise in body or spirit for our... No, this is a musical meditation. Sorry, stay seated. This is the joy of living. Sharon?
Farewell, ye northern hills, you mountains, all goodbye. Moorland and stony ridges, crags and peaks, goodbye. Glitter fat, farewell, cool big scarf, farewell, cloud-bearing southern. Sun-warmed rock and the cold of the bleak, close frozen sea. The snow and the wind and the rain of hills and mountains. Days in the sun and tempered wind and the air like wine. And you drink till you're drunk on the joy of living. Farewell to you, my love, my time is almost done. Lie in my arms once more until the darkness comes. You filled all my days, held the night at bay, dearest companion. Years pass by and they're gone with the speed of a bird in flight. Our life like the verse of a song heard in the mountains. Give me your hand and love and join your voice with mine. We'll sing of the hurt and the pain and the joy of living. Farewell to you, my chicks, soon you must fly alone. Flesh of my flesh, my future life, bone of my bone. May your wings be strong, may your days be long, safe be our journey. Each of you bears inside of you the gift of love. May it bring you light and warmth and the pleasure of giving. Eagerly savor each new day and the taste of its mouth. Never lose sight of the thrill and the joy of living. Take me to some high place of heaven.
I'll be part of the curlew's cry and the soaring hawk, the blue milkwort and the sundew hung with diamonds. I'll be riding the gentle wind that blows through your hair, reminding you how we shared in the joy of living. So we now commend Elizabeth Ann Engelke Bradford into the hands of God, using these words in your program. You alone, O God, are immortal, the creator and healer of all. Give rest, O God, to your beloved child, along with all the beloved, where there is neither pain, nor sorrow, nor sighing, but life everlasting.
We commend
Elizabeth and Engelke Bradford into your care, child of God, friend of the earth, loved by Christ, gathered into the fullness of the Spirit, above us, beside us, and within us. God, one with us, and we, one with God, now and forever. Amen. Now please rise for our final song. And now, as soon as I've given the blessing, I'll escort the family, the whole group of you. We'll go down and out the back, and then we'll turn right and come down this corridor, and we'll meet all the rest of you at the reception outside. And for the blessing, I'll use a few lines from Ewan McCall's Joy of Living. And imagine Liz saying this to each one of you. May your wings be strong. May your days be long, safe for your journey. Each of you bears inside you the gift of love. May it bring you light and warmth and pleasure of giving. Eagerly savor each new day and the taste of its mouth. Never lose sight of the thrill and the joy of living. Go in grace and peace. Amen.